Okay, coming up on the Zach Lowe Show. Woo! A lot going on in the NBA. The draft was last night. We've got trades galore, including a puzzler by the New Orleans Pelicans that is incredibly reckless, incredibly risky, and boy, oh boy, did the Hawks just walk in to an amazing payoff. Caw-caw! My Atlanta Hawks are coming. We're going to get into every trade, all the major draft fits with Tate Frazier, who's going to educate me about college basketball. We hit top to bottom everything that happened at the draft. I haven't addressed the Portland-Boston trade from earlier this week with Anthony Simons and Drew Holiday yet. We get into that. Are the Blazers going to be sneaky good this year? We get into the Porzingis salary dump. What did the Nets do? Who are all these players? How good could the Hawks be next year? What are the Celtics up to? Is there anything to that Jaylen Brown smoke? What about the Derek White smoke? Or are the Celtics going to stand pat? There's obviously still a lot of offseason left to go, including the second round of the draft coming up tonight. That's all coming up on the Zach Lowe Show right after this break. You're listening to the Zach Lowe Show presented by FanDuel. The NBA Finals might be over, but you can still get in on the action with America's #1 sportsbook. It's never too early to look ahead to next season with tons of futures and player specials all season long. If you want to keep betting on all the other excitement this summer, FanDuel has it all from MLB to soccer, golf, the WNBA. Download the FanDuel app today to make every moment more. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available and listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Must be 21 or over in present and select states or 18 and over in present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Welcome to the Zach Lowe Show. The draft happened. A lot of trades happened. I haven't even weighed in on the Boston salary dumps yet. There is a lot to talk about, and we have college perspective. Tate Frazier, One Shining Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. Happy to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about Derek Queen, so I'm ready to go, man.
I got a lot of questions about Derek Queen. Mo Dakhil, from video coordinator days at multiple teams, from so many media outlets I can't keep track. He's got his own podcast with Jared Dubin. You're going to help me with the NBA fits. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Zach. And I'm excited to be here and hear from Tate because I got questions about Derek Queen as well.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, that's where we're going to start. The Pelicans-Hawks trade from last night and just the general outlook for both teams after both of them made previous trades this week that were interesting trades, one of which was a Boston salary dump to Celtics, dumping Porzingis to the Hawks in a 3-team trade that involved the Nets taking on Terrence Mann and the number 22 pick. The Nets just drafted 5 dudes, and everyone was confused about how could they draft 5 guys. I don't think anyone checked the Nets roster. They had plenty of room to draft all 5 guys. And I don't think they could have drafted a more eclectic mix of guys had they tried just for that purpose to draft eclectic mixes. Unbelievable night for the Nets. We'll get to that. And then, okay, so let's start with this. Okay, the Pelicans came in with the number 23 pick in the draft. That was the Pacers pick. That was originally it's a long story. They had the Pacers pick, got the Pacers pick, traded the Pacers their own pick back. They moved up 10 spots from 23 to 13. To draft Derek Queen from Maryland. Like Derek Queen, that's fine. In return, they gave the Hawks the 23rd pick, that aforementioned, for which the Hawks selected Asa Newell from Georgia. People seem to like him. I know, Tate, you liked him at that spot. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, an unprotected 2026 pick that is the best going to Atlanta, the most favorable of the Pelicans' own pick. You might remember that the Pelicans play in the Western Conference. Their starting point guard tore his Achilles, and their starting power forward / franchise player never plays. Their pick, or the Bucks pick. You might remember that the Bucks starting point guard tore his Achilles, and the Bucks' best player, if he gets injured for any stretch of time, they are hopeless without a life raft. Unprotected in a draft that is absolutely loaded at the top, according to all my draft expert friends. I'm still in shock. I can't believe that they paid that price to go up 10 spots to get Derek, particularly in a draft where we saw some trade ups that made sense. Like Utah paid a reasonable price to move up 3 spots from 21 to 18 and draft Walter Clayton Jr. Great night for Utah. We'll talk about Ace Bailey. They're taking Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey, we don't care that you stiffed us at the restaurant with the bill. We don't care that you never even came to Utah. You don't even know where Utah is on the map, maybe. We don't care. We're taking you. Memphis paid a heavier price to move up from 16 to 11 to draft Cedric, not Colin Coward, Cedric the Coward. Reasonable trades, both. This one, you have to look at it and wonder. Bryson Graham, he was the holdover in the front office in New Orleans from the David Griffin regime. Stuck around for a while, stuck around enough to have some conversations with Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver. And then went to Atlanta and took a promotion to go to Atlanta and be Onse Soleil's right-hand man, one of two. And then on draft night, you have to wonder if in the lead up to it, he told the Hawks, I know what Joe wants, and we're going to squeeze him really, really hard. I think this is an absolutely reckless trade. And it's so reckless that I was texting with some people this morning, front office people, scouts, and about because the trade is going to overshadow that the Pelicans walked out of this draft with Jeremiah Fears at 7, who people seem reasonably excited about, is like an upside, like, why not? What else do we have going on? Super skilled with the ball pick. And Derek Queen at 13, a very high-profile, super skilled college player. Like, if both of those hit, like, the Pelicans are counting on you can critique our process all you want. The results are going to bear out. So, Tate, I ask you, tell me about these guys and how they fit on a Pelicans team that, by the way, to me, inexplicably just volunteered to take on Jordan Poole's salary for an extra year for some reason and trading CJ McCollum to the Wizards. If I had to project it out, I would say their starting 5 is Jordan Poole, with DeJounte Murray out recovering from an Achilles injury. Mm-hmm. Herb Jones Jr., love him. Trey Murphy III, love him. Didn't get why there was any trade buzz about those guys. Don't really buy that it was real, because those are the last guys I'm trading if I'm the Pelicans. Zion, great when he plays. Misi, like him, fine. That's why I didn't understand the Malawach buzz for them, because they already have Yves Misi. Although everyone wants 2 centers now, I guess. Wemby panic is flying across the Western Conference. And then off the bench, you got Fears, Jose Alvarado, Sadiq Bey, Queen, the Makovich kid I like that can play Zion at center. Like, it's an okay team. Tate, I'm going to go to you first.
Please.
Derek Queen. Sell me on this. Sell me that he fits with Zion. Sell me that this price is not the absolute most insane thing that's happened in the NBA in a little bit.
Well, I think there are 2 conversations, right? There's the conversation, which is what you're having, which is the NBA conversation, which is, this is insane, an unprotected pick. I'm a Joe Dumars guy. Shout out to McNeese State. I love Joe. I think Joe's the best. I love the 2 phones with Joe. I think it's a great meme. I think it's a great moment. Now, exactly. Zach knows what he's doing. Yeah, you get it. So this is the Joe Dumars that we know and love. And I do feel like that Joe, as you mentioned and you kind of laid out, he probably watched Derek Queen on tape and fell in love with Derek Queen, because Derek Queen has kind of these old school tendencies that you kind of fall in love with, which is, in March Madness, we needed someone to make a highlight play, someone to have a buzzer beater to get us going. Who did it? Derek Queen. Who wanted the ball at the end of the game? Derek Queen. Who can create for others? Derek Queen. Who has a Wes Unseld, Kevin Love outlet pass? Derek Queen. So I understand the creativity of Derek Queen and why you would fall in love with him, the touch, the feel. I do feel like he's a very special type of player. I do think he has star, and every single level that we've seen Derek Queen, whether it's high school, whether it's college, whether it's like a random game in the park, he ends up being the best player on the court. Now, I don't know how it really works, Zach. I don't know if it's something where he has a handshake deal with the guys before he starts playing, but for whatever reason, people defer to him. People expect him to be a creator. People expect him to be a guy who can kind of stir the drink for everybody else. He's a very likable kid. He's a very affable kid. I think he's a good locker room presence. I can see why he maybe didn't do as great in the pre-draft process with some of that stuff, because he's a little bit kind of loose and light, but the basketball speaks for itself. I think it's a really good fit as far as, him, Joe Dumars, that group of guys. I think Zion will like him, and I like him as a small ball 5. I like him as kind of a floater, and he has said multiple times he wants to create on the perimeter, and I think he can do that.
Okay. Wow. That was okay. Mo, any follow-ups, any notes?
Well, yeah, like, how do you think he pairs with how do you think he pairs with Zion on the floor together? Like, is this going to be a thing where we can only play one of those guys at the same time? From my understanding, I'm not a big draft guy myself, so it's not like I have the full understanding. Like, Is he a guy that can space the floor a little bit? Can these two, in your mind, play together? Because I just think no matter how high you are on him, I think giving up an unprotected pick when you are not projected to be good next year is absolutely insane. Like, I'm still flabbergasted. Like, I slept on it, was tossing all night, going like, man, did they really think they're going to be good this year? Like, I just don't know what the plan is here. Like, that's the thing I'm worried about, is beyond that, as much as you love the kid, like, are you wrecking your future in a draft again that we think is going to be really good in the top? And that's an area where we would have projected New Orleans to be picking.
And it doesn't help with the conditioning aspect too, right? The one knock on Derek Queen that you would probably point to say, we need him to be locked in from a conditioning standpoint. That's the same thing that you kind of had with Zion. Now you take him down to New Orleans. This is already an issue for Zion 6 years in. We don't want Queen to kind of fall down that same path. That would be my concern as well.
New Orleans, you automatically gain 5 pounds when you get off the plane, and every week Cafe you stay, you get more and more. It's just naturally how it happens.
So you're telling me, Tate, that New Orleans traded one of the best assets in the entire NBA now in a draft that is absolutely loaded to pick a player who they then have to tell, hey, can you just not hang out with our best player off the court so much? Like, I don't think that's a great idea for you. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm hoping that there is some sort of positive spin on this, where maybe Zion sees Derek Queen and wants to take him under his wing, and maybe they get in shape together. You know what I mean, Zach? I kind of lean to more an optimist approach with these draft picks, and I do like Fears and I do like Queen. Like, if you just gave me I
like Fears too. I think Fears is a good pick there.
So if you showed me those two guys and didn't give me the unprotected or, all that sort of stuff in the background and said, hey, the Pelicans got these two guys in the draft, I would come away and say, hey, it's a pretty good draft. Really, really good players, star upside. But when you throw in the pick, that's when it makes it a very convoluted conversation.
Now, I want to tie a couple of things together with this next discussion, because I think you just led me to an important point about the Pelicans and connecting it to the Blazers, who were the other partner for the Boston salary dumps of the week. The Blazers trade Anthony Simons' expiring contract and some second-round picks for Drew Holiday. And Drew Holiday's got 3 years left on his deal. He's that $37 million player option 3 years from now. It's a good bet that he's going to opt into that. It's a lot to take on, even if the Blazers, if you map it out, are safe from the aprons, and some years safe from the tax. They've got a lot of big numbers coming off the books in the next couple of years if they want, in Ayton and Robert Williams III, and they just keep acquiring centers. They lit the world on fire with Yang Hansen, I guess is how you say his name, from China, who was mocked in the mid-second round or the high 30s, and they took him at 16 in their trade down from 11. We'll talk about that. And it seemed sort of like, is that irrational exuberance from Portland? I know they finished the season, I think, on a 23-18 run. You never know what to make of March and April in the NBA when bad teams start winning a little more games, but there were real signs there. Scoot, I think, made a leap up. Denny Avdia was outstanding. Kamara is a real guy. And you look at their team now in the wake of that trade, and I'm going to project, they have 7 potential starters, but I'm going to guess that this is their starting 5. Scoot, the runway's there for Scoot now. And I think Scoot made real strides as a scorer around the basket. His 3-point shooter, mid-range is only so-so. But unlike Simons, there are real signs that Scoot's a guy that can make his teammates better and will defend really, really hard. Simons is like a bottom 5th percentile defender in the NBA. Scoot, Avdia, Kamara, Grant, Ayton. That's one iteration of the starting 5. It's one in which both Shaedon Sharpe and Drew Holiday come off the bench. Could you start one of them? Absolutely. I don't know who you would take out of the starting 5. Could you coax Jeremy Grant? And Jeremy Grant probably is like, I'm the guy. And then you have Thibault. You stagger one of those Avdia, Kamara, and Grant can all play the 4. You stagger one of them, and you have million centers starting with Klingon off the bench. That's a decent team. I don't know how they're going to score. I don't know how they're going to build an above average offense out of that. But I think my point is this. I think both Portland and to some extent New Orleans. Now, New Orleans has so much uncertainty swirling around it between the Murray recovery timeline. If he can even come back this year, I don't know. I think they're hopeful. I think it was late January when he tore his Achilles. And Zion is just a ball of uncertainty. But I think they're both looking at the West and saying to themselves, everyone says the West is loaded. And the West is loaded. but are people kind of overrating the West? Is it maybe a little kind of fat in the midsection where there's an opening for a random team like one of us to just suddenly be a 46-win team? And you look up and down the conference, Oklahoma City, we know. Houston is going to be very good. Denver, as long as Jokic is healthy, is going to be very good. And then after that, it's like Clippers, they have downside risk. Warriors, they have downside risk. They're getting old. They have this Kuminga question hanging over their head. Memphis just took a step back. Lakers, I mean, we all think it's going to work with Luka. It was good last year, but it wasn't like, oh my God, they still need a center, blah, blah, blah. Mark Williams, their trade target, was just traded to Phoenix. Dallas, can we go easy on the Mavs or a championship contender, by the way? Can we just pump the brakes on that? Can we just pump the brakes on the Mavs being the biggest threat to the Thunder in the Western Conference?
That's insane. That's such an insane concept right
there. People know Kyrie tore his ACL, right? Like he's going to be, and he did it in March. Like he had his surgery in late March.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you guys know this. Did either of you know, do you know right now that Cooper Flagg is from Maine? Did you guys know that?
The main man, the main character. I mean, how many more puns can we get, Zach?
No more Maine puns. Between Maine puns and Flagg puns, there were just way too many puns. And like, no state has ever got this much. When is the last time a state, not a city, not a town, a state got this much mileage out of an athlete? Like, I would like to actually think about that one. Just enough. I know he's from Maine. Phoenix, Spurs, obviously on the way up with Wemby. Sacramento, whatever. Minnesota is actually probably pretty rock solid unless they do some. So that's like a fourth or fifth rock solid team. My point is this: like, I don't think it's crazy for both of these teams to look at the West and say we have a path into the play-in at the very least. Now, I think it's a little crazier for New Orleans given their health situation, but I think both these teams are looking at the West and thinking all the hype around it is legit. It's a deep conference. Players keep coming here. Top picks keep coming here. Dylan Harper is coming here. Cooper Flagg from Maine is coming here. But it's maybe not as elite across the board as people think. And why not bet on ourselves? Mo, what do you think of that Portland roster and outlook that I just laid out? The offense is, I don't quite see the roadmap there, but Avdia made a huge leap last year, drawing fouls, getting to the basket. Grant didn't play much and they down the stretch, and they still were winning games. Like, there's a decent I don't mind them being like, we're going to try to compete. I think the third year of Drew's deal really makes it a little exorbitant for them. It's fair to ask, like, did they sell low on Anthony Simons? I actually probably don't think that they did. This is a front office that knows how to canvass the whole league. Once Orlando moved on to Bane, I don't know that there was a huge market for Simons, and he's on it expiring. Who's going to want money? I think I don't mind. I don't love it, but I don't mind it, and I see what they're trying to do. They're just like, let's try to win some games.
Yeah, I actually think their run towards the end of the season last year was a bit more real than I think most people. Like, I think that's something where I look at them going like, this is kind of the Houston roadmap for them in the way they're trying to go about things. I think not just the fact of the matter is, they go on that run at the end of the season, but I think, defense has been really what they were focused on. When you look at the way these guys had defended towards the end of the season, especially with guys like Kamara, who you're looking at going like, that's a dude that can be an all defensive guy to me make a second team all defensive team, in the next few years with how good he is defensively. I like what they have in terms of the pieces. I'm not a big Ayton guy. And again, they have a million centers. So I think, we'll see how that stuff kind of tunes this stuff out. I think they're going to be one of those teams that it's going to be on a nightly basis. They're very difficult to play against. And I think this is a reason to go for it. You have a bunch of young guys. I think this is the time to take the training wheels off of them. We got to go win games at this point now. You got to compete. You got to try. You just gave Chauncey an extension. Joe Cronin got an extension for how he built the team. Everything that you have with them. And I see no reason for them not to. They were a 36-win team last season. I can't see a reason why they can't be a better team and make a run for the play-in. I think it's going to be really hard to get in the top six, especially if, again, like you, I do wonder about their offense. How good are they going to be offensively? I think they sold Simons at the right price. I think if they held on to him any longer, they probably weren't going to get anything back. I think the question for me is, are you going to be able to keep Drew? Is Drew going to want to stay there? Are you going to be able to or are you going to turn him into something else? Like, I'll be curious to see how that kind of plays out. And again, with the logjam at center, I still think there might be a couple more moves coming.
I think all the doors are open. I mean, I think they traded for Drew Holiday to have Drew Holiday on their team as an adult in the room who, by the way, like I didn't like how his game was trending last year. Now he dealt with some lower body injuries. Maybe he'll bounce back, but the bounce back in the playoffs that the Celtics are hoping for didn't happen. And he looked old. He started to look a little bit like an older player, which he is. But I think they traded for him to be the veteran, the mentor, bolster the defense that particularly when Klingon is on the floor is going to be really, really good. I mean, if there's one thing Klingon can do, I had Klingon on my all rookie team because he can do one thing really well, and that's good enough for a rookie, protect the rim. Mm-hmm. Offensively, I still kind of don't see it with him. It's just everything is very slow, which is why their swing for the fences with Yang at 16 was so fascinating to me. I don't think anybody saw that coming. They had number 11. Memphis wanted Coward, which was kind of well known throughout the league, and Portland moves back 5 spots and picks up an Orlando pick in 2028, a first round pick. So an extra first, that's good because they owe Chicago a first and a few seconds. Tate, what do you think of the Coward meteoric rise? I'm looking at your board. You had him 13 on your big board, college players only. What do you think of his fit in Memphis, and how shocked were you by the Yang selection and how much film had you done of his play in China? I know you're, grinding tape like Russillo.
Always locked in. Young Hansen, as you know, the Chinese Joker is what we like to call him. A lot of saucy passes. You know what I mean? That's what I learned from my, 2-minute deep dive into Young Hansen. A lot of just impressive passes. I don't know really if it translates or not, but I like it. It felt like the Papa Giannis pick. Danny Chow had texted me that too from 2016. You know what I mean?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, not to, I know it wasn't lottery, but it's kind of just feels like kind of in that range of like we're taking a big swing here. Thon Maker at number 10, right? One of those picks where it's just like, we like this guy, we're gonna take him, it doesn't matter what the number is. So I found that a little bit jarring, but the Cedric Coward of it all, I mean, this is a guy that should have been a hidden gem. He should have been the 35th 37th pick that nobody really knows. He only played 6 games last year, but because we're also smart, Zach, and I give you some credit for this, I mean, there's so much kind of trickle down economics of everyone knows who is going to be the right recipe of a player in the NBA now, and I feel like Cedric Coward just checks so many boxes, and I feel like the broad shoulders, I feel like for Cedric Coward, that is what I would point to as far as the frame, what he can become. And if you talk about Jalen Wells and Cedric Coward, I think Jalen Wells, obviously top 3 rookie of the year voting this year, very underrated player. He's 6'7". You get Cedric Coward, who's 6'6". You got these guys on the wing who have a lot of energy, a lot of motor, a lot of upside, and a lot of IQ. And I think that those two guys together, they also really like each other. They're good friends. I just like kind of the teamwork that you got with those two guys on the wing. Very young, on rookie deals. They're going to work really hard. You replace Bane with Coward and Wells. I think that's a really good fit.
Yeah, the trade up in the NBA, the math seldom works out if you just do the Dallas Cowboys draft value thing. Mm-hmm. The math seldom works out that trading up is like the quote unquote smart move. Certainly, the Pelicans paid an incredible premium to trade up 10 spots. There's just no math model where that is going to be a smart move. Mm-hmm. This one, I don't know what those models would say. This is why you get an excess of first round picks. It's what the Thunder have been doing with all their first round picks. Take a swing. The Magic pick in 28, I think it's 2028. The Magic are probably going to be good. The cost is like the probabilities favor you there. And if you really like this guy and you think he fits, go and get him. And for Portland, just a fascinating move. They get an extra pick, but yeah, I don't mind that at all for the Grizzlies. We have to talk about my pet team in the NBA. We've talked around it enough. This episode is brought to you by HubSpot. In the playoffs, extra possessions are everything. Same goes for growing a business, and HubSpot's customer platform gives you more chances to win. Breeze, their built-in AI, automatically takes care of marketing, sales, and service tasks so you can game plan for growth. It's easy, efficient, and most importantly, it's effective. Customers are cutting sales cycles in half and getting hours back each week. That's like turning those contested jumpers into clean looks at the rim. Visit HubSpot.com/AI to learn more. When I had Waz on like 2-3 weeks ago, and we did the East kind of future power rankings, and Tess drove Bill's argument that the Pacers, this was the second round of the playoffs, I think, had the best medium-term future in the Eastern Conference. I ended up picking Cleveland, but now, sadly, many things have changed. Shout out to Tyrese Halliburton, by the way. Jump passes are good now. I had the Hawks really high, like fourth or third or something, and Waz was like, "You're being insane." And I thought, look, like I kind of like their team. I like this Daniels, Risache, Johnson, Okongwu 2 to 5. I lobbied for I think it's just time to keep Trae Young and hope you can. There's nothing out there for him. Sam Amick reported today that the Kings have been, I don't know what language you use, but at least had the thought of trading for Trae Young into their brains and said they don't want to do it. I've heard the same thing. He evolved last year in ways I've talked about. Now, just a little bit. He's still Trae Young, but keep coaxing him that way. Keep getting players, other playmakers, supplementary playmakers, other guard screeners, people that sort of just force him into being a more creative on and off ball, more unpredictable offensive player. And then they get this trade. They walk into this unprotected pick after already digging themselves out of the DeJounte Murray grave with a retrade of DeJounte Murray that turns into a masterpiece. And I think the Porzingis fit is potentially awesome for them and gives them a completely new style of player to play with Trae. Look, it still bothers me that we don't really know what was wrong with Porzingis. He's apparently playing tennis and feeling great and ready to play for the Latvian national team. That's awesome. I assume the Hawks have done all their due diligence. I guess I must like Terrence Mann more than most people because that was just a pure salary dump and they couldn't find anywhere else to put him. And it shows you in this apron environment, teams are kind of panicking about even $15 million salaries if they're 2-3 years on them, and they had to pay the 22 pick to get off of that. I guess that's just the cost of doing business. I like the Porzingis fit for them. They're one backup wing, one quality wing away from me being this is a legit. I mean, they might already be a legit threat to make the. I think maybe they are a legit threat to make the conference finals in what remains of the Eastern Conference next year. They're one good wing away from being super, super interesting. They have this trade exception that everyone's talking about that they can use as a free agency vehicle. What not anyone else is talking about is they also have Karis LeVert in free agency, and they kind of can't re-sign him and use the trade exception because then that takes them into the tax. They might be able to re-sign LeVert and use a little piece of the trade exception, but I thought LeVert was good for them. I think with Mann being dumped and Niang being dumped, in that salary dump, they need some depth. But you look at Trae Young, Daniels, Risache, Johnson, Okongwu, and then off the bench, again, I need to see, what Kobe Buffkin can do, and if they bring back LeVert, and they love Mo Gay, and I see what they see in Mo Gay defensively. Porzingis is a backup center. I think they think Porzingis and Okongwu can play together a little bit here and there. But this brings me to my Tate question. Asa Newell at 23. You had him ranked 8th on your big board of college players. Can he step in and be one of these guys that I'm talking about for the potential NBA champion / dynastic Atlanta Hawks?
I will say this about Asa Newell. I do think that he's a lottery talent, and that does not necessarily mean that he's going to be, an all-star, a superstar, things like that. But the fact that he fell to 23, and especially when you add in the unprotected of it all with that trade with the Pelicans, I think this is a win-win because this is a talent that honestly, if they took Asa Newell at 13, Zach, that would have been a good pick in my opinion, in my estimation. I think he is a Georgia kid, obviously played at Georgia, going to be in Atlanta, going to be very comfortable, going to have people around him that are going to be very excited. There's going to be some energy in that building. I do like the Trae Young of it all in Atlanta. I think that he's kind of weathered the storm. They tried to get rid of him multiple times, but again, he won't go away. I'm on your side. I think the Hawks are trending in the right direction. Defensively, they put the right pieces behind Trae Young. We need size. We need length. We've got that now behind him. Daniels, I thought, was a really good piece for this team, especially with Trae Young. And I think that Asa Newell, his game is definitely, there's going to be some range for him to grow into more of a scorer, into more of a shooter, right? More of a spot up guy. But right now, he's a solid piece. He can defend the rim a little bit. He can get you rebounds. He's going to be a solid piece on the block. He's not going to take shots away from anybody, but a 15 to 20 minute spot minute guy at number 23 who has lottery gifts and lottery talent. I think it's a nice piece for the Hawks.
Let's go.
That's what I wanted. Yeah,
I was just waiting for that.
Look, okay, I love it. I love everything you just said. I think the Hawks have really done well the last week or 10 days. Let's go rapid. Oh, by the way, about Trey. You said they've tried to get rid of him a few times. I think that was the language you used. I don't know how aggressive they've been, but I will say this. At various points over the last 18 months, because the Hawks have like waxed and waned a lot over the last 18 months, right? Like, I mean, they always end up in the play-in, no matter what the path of waxing and waning is to get there. But they've had periods, particularly, I think, the first couple months of last season before Jalen Johnson got hurt, periods where it looked like, okay, something interesting is happening here, and then less interesting periods, which is to say, I'm pretty confident that over the last 18 months, there were points at which if there had been a strong offer on the board for Trae Young, he probably would not be on the Hawks anymore, or possibly Ed Shishase to not be on the Hawks anymore. Now I think, I said this already, look, I'm not giving him the max extension. Just like if I'm the Kings, I'm not giving Zach LaVine anything like the max extension. And if the downside risk of that is Trae Young being like, I'm Trae Young, I'm Ice Trae, I do this thing after I make baskets and people love it, I'm the only reason people have been coming to games here for the last 5 years, give me the max or I'm leaving, then I'm living with that. What I'm trying to do is, can I sell you on the vision we have here, that you can be the best player on a really good team in a market that loves you, and we can sign you to an extension that is like reasonable and not the max. And if I can't, I can't. But I also know that Atlanta is among the teams that has most closely watched Indiana and will definitely be going to Trae Young and being like, did you watch the playoffs? Did you see the power? Now, you're never going to play like Tyrese Halliburton. We get that. But did you see the power of like a little more pace, a little more unpredictability, a little more give and go and move? And did you see what can happen when a defensively challenged guard, who admittedly is taller than you and has more size and probably better instincts, just buys in and plays his ass off every minute of every game defensively? Did you see that? Because it's a game changer for a team that's trying to win at the highest level. That's all I'm saying about the Hawks. Okay, let's rapid fire through some things. Tate, Utah. Everyone's excited about Utah, that they're among the big winners of the night. They traded up for Clayton, and they had Ace not fault him. Ace was there at 5, and they took Ace. You had Ace number 2 on your big board. And Clayton, I'm looking for. Where's Clayton?
21. 20. Yeah.
How excited are you about the Ace fit in Utah?
I think that Ace Bailey, you look, the agent of it all, right? The Omar of it all made this a little bit awkward and made it weird for everybody. And I do feel like trying to dictate the terms of Ace Bailey's draft destination was definitely a swing and a miss. But with Utah, they did the right thing. I think they looked at the board and they said to themselves, hey, even if he doesn't want to be here, or at least that's what the representation is telling us, we know enough based on the intel around Ace, which is, hey, he's great in practice. He's great in the locker room. All of his teammates like him. He's like a 12-year-old. Everyone says he's like a teenager, right? He's just like, he hasn't quite got to that maturation process. But if you're Utah, we have a runway. We have time for him to mature. And we also have a situation where we wanted the number 1 pick, right? We wanted a talent at number 1 or number 2 or number 3. We didn't get that opportunity. But guess what? We got a top 3 talent in the draft. He fell into our laps. Yes, he didn't want to work out for us. Yes, he didn't want to go to dinner. Yes, he didn't want to call Danny Ainge. But guess what? We can still get him to Utah. And we get him a nice kind of running mate with Walter Clayton Jr., a guy who's a little bit older, who has kind of gone through the ebbs and flows of college basketball, has now ended up on the right side of things, has a kid, has kind of this responsibility to life. I feel like some of that stuff around Ace will be really good. They can grow together. And I feel like these guys are going to be fish out of water in Utah, a kid from Florida, a kid from Georgia. They're going to be out there in the middle of nowhere. All they have is basketball. I think they're going to lock in. I think that's why I really like the fit, because these two guys can kind of fit in with each other. They can have a kind of freedom with this team as they get rid of the older guys that are kind of on bad contracts and let them go. And Ace can do some things that'll make you go, wow. You know what I mean? You talk about mouth agape. You know what I mean? You watch Ace Bailey do some things on a basketball court, some of the shots he can hit. It's really special. So I just think it's a really good fit for Utah. And I would be very excited if I was a Jazz fan to have those two guys coming into the building.
I just like the positional fit that both of them have, because the Jazz have a lot of these sort of, small guards or ball dominant guards. And they, and centers in Kessler and Filipowski, who's, can play the 4, but is also a 4.5 or whatever. And, these represent positions of need for them, whether Markkanen is on the team in 2 years or not. It's the kind of size positions that you want. And they also, if necessary, now I like Hendricks. I think Taylor Hendricks is on track to be a good NBA player before his injury. Hopefully he's fine. If the Cody Williams pick is a bust, like this kind of gets you out of that a little bit. I think it's awesome for them. It's exciting for them. And like, yeah, Ace will have to learn to like playing for the Jazz because that's who he's playing for. All right, let's keep going. Washington, Trey Johnson, adding to a list of, and Will Riley, adding to a list of young players of Alex Sarr, Bob Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, AJ Johnson, who they stole from the Bucks in the Kuzma deal. They haven't gotten the lottery luck. In fact, they've gotten the opposite. They had to trade Beal from a position of extreme weakness. There's something interesting going on in Washington, and I like the getting off Poole's money and bringing in CJ, and just, I think the bet there for them is CJ is going to be a little less ball dominant than Poole, so all of our other young guys can get some reps. He's going to be a great veteran for everybody, and we can maybe reflip him at the trade deadline. Sorry, CJ, I know you love being in trade rumors. I think they've done a nice job. Tate, tell me about Trey Johnson and how he fits there.
Well, Trey Johnson this year in college basketball, SEC, best conference ever. That's what they were saying, Zach. And Trey Johnson was a freshman. He led the entire conference in scoring. So that says a lot about who he is as a player. The fact that he was able to average 20 points a game against the size, against the length of everyone in the SEC. They also had an interesting situation where his point guard, Tremont Mark, was trying to ice him out of games. It was like an Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan all-star game situation where
spicy.
These are two ball dominant guards that are basically like, I'm a senior, I take the shots. I'm a freshman. I'm better than you. Give me the basketball. So that was happening as well. So for Trey Johnson to kind of, still stay in it, still get his numbers, still be able to make a positive impact from a scoring standpoint, I think that's very positive. And if, I'm reading between the lines here, if I'm Troy Weaver, the Washington, everyone that's putting this team together, CJ, you mentor Trey. You help him understand where his spots and his shots are. You let him understand what a matured game looks like as a scorer. And then as soon as kind of that tutelage is over with, hey, thanks, CJ, back to trade rumors, and you can go to a contender, all that sort of stuff. But I like having someone to guide Trey into this situation, and you give Bub Carrington the ball more. You got the front line with Sarr. I mean, I like Keyshawn George, who they got last year in the draft. I mean, I really like what the Wizards are doing in general, but I think Bub getting the ball more, Trey Johnson getting some shots for this team, there's a lot of things to be excited about with this young core.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's like a long-term alpha number one option on the team yet. I actually I'll get to Houston later, but that's fine. Like, those guys don't grow on trees. They have a nice collection of young players. I liked Sarr as a rookie. I liked Carrington enough. I'm not sure how much offense is there in terms of like, can he really carry a gigantic pick and roll load, but he's going to get his chances. I don't know. Mo, what team do you want to go to next? I'll let you pick a team that you're interested to talk about.
I like this.
Well, I think we just got to go to Houston. I think you mentioned them. I think that's the team to go to right now.
Well, take it away.
Well, no, I just think I love what they did with the KD trade. I think the more impressive thing than anything else is the Fred VanVleet contract extension. They get him to turn down the player option of $44 million, get him to sign for 2 years around $50 million. Like, that's shocking to me a little bit in terms of him just leaving a lot of money on the table in the sense of that, but allows him to be a free agent when there's more projected cap space in 2 years. And then it kind of just sets this team up beautifully. They still have a ton of assets, Zach. Like, that's the thing that's kind of amazing in the trade that for KD. Didn't give up Reed Shepherd, no Jabari Smith, didn't give up Cam Whitmore. I think with all the stuff that they have, like, they're still in position if they want to go make another trade. And I just think, looking at the way the roster's set up, KD, Amen Thompson, Fred VanVleet, Alperen Şengün, like, you're kind of set up beautifully for them to just kind of continue to be a terror on defense and then have a guy who can get you a bucket at the end of possessions, which is something they struggled with throughout the course of the season last year. Like, I think that's a phenomenal move for them with what they have. And I really think Ime's excited. I think this is going to be a fun group to coach. And I think this is the team that they're trying to put together to challenge the Thunder. Like, this is the squad right here that's going to be able to do it, I think. And, they're still not even done. They still have pieces that they can move if they want to, if there's somebody out there they want to go get.
Look, free agency hasn't even started yet. Well, it's started, wink, wink, but it hasn't actually started yet. If you asked me to line up teams 2, 3, and 4 behind Oklahoma City, who's going to walk in as the favorite to win the whole thing again, in some order, it's Houston, Denver, and you have to put Minnesota there because of what they've accomplished the last 2 years. I did the Durant thing already my last episode. I love the trade. I think it's awesome. The Van Vliet thing is such a masterful use of leverage. They had this team option on him for $45 million, and they could go to him respectfully and be like, so here's what's going to happen. We're not going to pick that up, but we are going to offer you the equivalent money, actually $5 million more total, but over 2 years. So your salary for next year is going to be 25 instead of 45. If you don't like that, you can go ask the Nets to spend a lot of money on you this offseason. There's no cap room out there. And not only that, having him at that number puts the mid-level exception in play, and they're just one extra piece again is just huge for them off their bench, and keeps them out of the tax potentially while using the mid-level. He also expires right when Amen Thompson's next deal will kick in, which is huge timing-wise for them. I think it's just a home run use of leverage. I think they're going to be awesome next year. I have already covered that. Mo, to your point, they are flush with assets still. And this is neither here nor there. I just want to make sure I remember to say this before I move on. Houston is one of a few teams that theoretically, and I cannot say that strongly enough, would have the juice to go chase Jaylen Brown. And there was a lot of Jaylen Brown smoke in the ether this week, and a little bit less Derek White smoke in the ether this week, and nothing happened. There were published rumors that Utah was trying to make a run at Jaylen Brown. Everyone emphatically said that's not true, and I believe those people that wasn't true. The Hawks have been a rumored Jaylen Brown destination for a long time. I don't think there was anything ever there. I don't know that there was anything real with Jaylen Brown at any point this week. There were reports that the Raptors offered number 9 for Derek White. I'm told that's true, but that it happened like a month and a half ago, right after Tatum got hurt, and Boston laughed at that offer and said that we need way more than number 9 for Derek White. So I don't know. I don't really. And then, Shams had the report on ESPN that the phone lines were ringing off the hook in Boston about Jaylen Brown in the wake of the Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis salary dumps. I'm sure they were getting calls. I'm not sure how many calls they were getting. I got a little pushback on the idea that the phones were just like Dumars level ringing off the hook. I'm pretty confident that the Celtics in the immediate aftermath of Tatum's injury did their due diligence on what they could possibly get for those guys, or did their due diligence simply by receiving calls about what they could possibly get for those guys, which is my long way of saying, like, nothing's happened with them yet. If you force me to bet, I would say both of them are on the Celtics next year. And the Celtics could be okay next year. I think Bill's a little too high on them. Like, they're one short-term injury away from being really, really thin. But I like the Simons move for them. They might retrade him. They might not. He adds a new dimension on offense. That'll be fun to watch them play with a little bit. I think they'll be okay. But I'm just not shutting the door all the way on either of those guys being moved. If I think you'd have to bowl Boston over and be like, this is like, we're having a gap year and you've made it so beyond worth our while that we just have to do this trade. I'm just not shutting the door all the way. End of Boston. Boston segment. Tate.
Yeah.
Harper, Castle, Fox, Wemby. What do we think?
I like that the Spurs decided to fit Wemby's timeline. I feel like there is this expectation that we have to push everything. We have to put all of our chips in as if like Wemby's going to be away in 5 years. I like that the fact that the Spurs were like, you know what? We have Castle. We think he's going to be a real player. He's a rookie of the year, obviously. We like him fitting into this timeline. We like the fact that we have the best pick and roll player in the draft. I mean, if you watch Dylan Harper make reads in real time, he has this anticipatory skill, especially when it comes in the pick and roll of kind of knowing where people are, knowing where bodies will be, and knowing how to move and maneuver in space. I think it's a very special knack and a very special skill. It goes back to the fact that he's watched and played a lot of basketball in his life, so he kind of has this innate kind of knack for knowing where to go with the basketball. I think that's a nice piece to have. I think they looked at him and Wemby and they said, hey, this is a future NBA Jam t-shirt right here. We can't pass up on this. We can't do a fit pick here when we have this right in front of us. So I understand the Fox of it all, but as you know, and Mo and Zach, I mean, when they made the Fox deal, they had no idea that Dylan Harper would be on the table. So I do think like it's almost like the rich got richer. They can figure it out in camp. And from what I know about Dylan, just as a person, he will fit a role if he has to. You know what I mean? Like Dylan's not one of those guys that's like, I need this many minutes, this many shots, this many that. I think he'll get in and he'll make it work. So I think it's a great fit for the Spurs.
I don't think they gave up enough for Fox for me to even be worried about it. If in 2 or 3 years I decide I got to move him for whatever reason, like I think De'Aaron Fox is really good. I think the price they paid was low. I actually, Sacramento, a little shout out to Sacramento, the mystery team of the offseason, by the way. Traded a 1-16 protected pick from the Spurs to buy into the first round and take Nick Clifford. So that's a good trade in / trade up of like one roughly equivalent pick. We like this guy, where we just want this guy on our team. We're going to trade a really limited upside pick that's about the same as the 24 pick. That's how you do it. That's a good move. Sacramento, by the way, all bets are off with the Kings. Like all bets are off.
Always.
Levine, DeRozan. Does anyone want DeRozan? The Heat have been mentioned. I think the Heat would be smart to prioritize like a Kuminga ahead of like a younger guy ahead of a DeRozan. And I think the Heat Kuminga smoke is real. Sabonis just has to be looking around like, what? What? We had Fox and Halliburton, and this is what's left? Like, all bets are off with the Kings. They are the mystery team of the offseason. Nothing would surprise me with the Kings. But, yeah, Spurs, great. Okay, continuing with Tate educating me about college players. Edgecombe to the Sixers with Maxey McCain and potentially Quentin Grimes. Too many guards, just enough guards? Can Edgecombe play? Oh, can he slide to the 3 in some lineups? What does he have, a 6'10" wingspan or something crazy like that? What do we got here?
Yeah, my favorite comp for VJ that I saw, shout out to Ant Wright who put this out there, a 6'5" Andrew Wiggins. I think that's a very good way to put VJ Edgecombe because this guy is just a spark plug. Some of the athletic things that he can do on a basketball court will shock you. He had the #1 highlight in college basketball this year. He dunked on Mark Few's son, Joe Few, and absolutely bodied him early in the season and then just stood over him. It was a very moment where it was just like, oh my God, who is this man? The stories of his time in the Bahamas, the fact that he took his NIL money and then sent it down to a scholarship to get kids from his hometown to go to a private school that he got to go to as a basketball player, got him 3 scholarships. Like the person of VJ, I think, is really what sold him. Obviously, the athleticism is amazing. It's tantalizing. It's fun to watch. I think that he can fit into a role. I think he's a really good kid. I think a lot of people like being around him. I don't think he's going to be a very selfish personality to be around. And as far as the Sixers, I thought they were drafting VJ to trade VJ. But I think once they started kind of, talking to him and bringing him around and sort of seeing the fit, they're like, yeah, we really like this kid. Why are we going to send him somewhere else? Let's bring him in and see what happens. So VJ is going to have some highlights. VJ is going to have some fun summer league moments. I think we should get ready for the summer league dunks that are ahead for VJ. And I like the pick for the Sixers. I know it was more of a fit pick than it was like the best on the board, but I think he's a really talented player, maybe a little bit underrated at this point because he did fit in a role at Baylor so much.
Now, I do think within VJ's camp, there's some consternation about we think this guy can do a lot with the basketball, and we're a little concerned about how much he's going to get the basketball on a team with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. But that's fine. You grow into the role as you. I think walking into a situation like this is great. I agree with you that the Sixers would have been open to trading down. Not far down, because as this selection evinces and what I've been saying all along, nothing can be done anymore on Joel Embiid's timeline. Right. Every decision they make has to be on Tyrese Maxey's timeline. This fits that. This and the Spurs pick fall into the same bucket for me, which is if you think the talent is the best talent, you are not in a place of a franchise to make a decision based on any other factor, but get the best guy. And if this is the best guy, this is the best guy. Can either of you, I mean, I Tate, this is your environment more than ours.
Yep.
What have the Nets ended up with these 5 picks? That's the next question. I'm not even saying that to besmirch the picks, but they come from all over the world, all different kinds of players. We have a defensive specialist in Powell. We have at least one genius point guard in passer and Igor Demin. We have a center in Danny Wolf. We have, I don't know. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I said that this was the 2009 Minnesota Timberwolves draft where they just took
That's not good. Don't hit them with that.
No,
don't hit them with that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what was happening. They just took every guard on the board. I think Yegor was there. I mean, they're at number 8. Yegor probably would have been gone by the time they get to number 19. So they just do the Memphis or the Portland pick where they're just like, hey, take our guy. It doesn't matter. They take Yegor higher than most people would take Yegor. That was the first shock of the draft for me when they took Yegor at 8. We had 8 straight.
I mispronounced his name as Igor. It's Yegor. I knew that. I'm just tired.
Well, at the same, it doesn't matter, Zach. You know what I mean? My rule is we'll learn your name when you become the greatest. Like, I didn't know how to spell Giannis Antetokounmpo until 2018. You know what I mean? Like, that's the moment where I'm like, okay, I got to write this name out and spell it out. We'll do that with Yegor at some point, hopefully. Traore is another one where it's like, yes, maybe this is the guard. You know, if it's not Ricky Rubio, maybe it's Johnny Flynn, maybe it's Ty Lawson, right? That's what it felt like with his Nets. They just kept trying to throw, guards out there to see that what was going to hit. I like Drake Powell, a great on-ball perimeter defender. I went to the McDonald's All-American game this year, talked to some Brooklyn people. They told me then they loved Drake. So they weren't really shy about the fact that they liked him, and they ended up taking him. And then I thought Saraf and Danny Wolf, those are what I like to call neighborhood picks. I just think that they were like, look, we're in Brooklyn. Everybody's excited to have some guys out here that like want to be excited to play in Brooklyn. Danny Wolf, I mean, look at his brother. He's bawling, crying.
Still crying.
Still crying. So I'm not
that was messy crying too. That was
mess. Sobbing. That wasn't crying. That was actually full on sobbing.
Most crying I've ever seen at the draft from the players, by the way, which kind of says something about the next generation. They're in touch with their emotions. Let's give them some credit. Shout out to those kids. They can feel what's going on in their bodies. Shout out to them. But yeah, I just think that this was a Brooklyn draft that would not be considered a great draft. But it is a very interesting draft, a very funny draft. And again, those last 2 picks felt like almost just for the crowd, like to get people excited to say, hey, we got D'Angelo Russell from Israel, and we got Danny Wolf, who you saw at Yale and Michigan. He also plays point guard. So we got 5 guards who are going to come in and, I guess fit in some way. They said they're going to bring everyone over. So Brooklyn, I don't know what the grade would be. I would assume it's trending down C- or less, Zach, but,
I sure as hell have no idea. But I'm excited. It's interesting that like creativity and passing is a skill that people are reaching for. Like Young in Portland, I think, look, no one should say Jokic's name in a draft comp. Okay, ever. It shouldn't come up. But just like size and creativity is a prized thing now. And the Nets are going for that. And I think, look, they've set themselves up to tank this year by reacquiring their own pick from Houston in the Mikal Bridges 3-team trade. They won too many games, and everyone was wondering, well, are they going to try to load up this summer? And I've been saying for weeks, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to tank again and collect young talent, take picks and salary dumps, and they already did that with Terrence Mann. And that's what they're doing. And maybe the lottery gods will frown on them again or not reward them again. And that's just the risk you take. But I think, what else are they supposed to do? So that's them. Okay. Let's see. Where do I want to go next? There's so much to talk about. Phoenix, Mo. Phoenix acquires Mark Williams from Charlotte, who's Charlotte just must have absolutely zero faith in Mark Williams' ability to stay healthy and or become a serviceable rim protector, because I kind of like Mark Williams. I had a long interview before last season with Charles Lee, just raving about Mark Williams, one of the most mature players he's ever coached. I've told this story before. They do these goals conferences. Charles Lee likes to do these goal conferences before the season. He's the only player that came in with they didn't even have to have a conversation. Mark Williams came in with an index card in 4 quadrants of different categories of goals and handed it to Charles Lee. He's like, hey, there's my goals you want to talk about? And Charles Lee had it laminated and posted in his office, like framed in his office. And they just have been doing nothing but trying to trade him for
it's wild
for their last year. Obviously, there's the aborted Lakers trade, and this is a little bit less return than that. It was the 29th pick in this draft and a 2029 pick from Phoenix. Goodbye, Phoenix, to all your picks yet again. Liam McNeely was selected at 29. He was weeping as well. I love it. I agree with you. Like, this is a huge moment. And by the way, like we saw Flip hang out in the green room all last year and then have to go to the second green room in Brooklyn the next day. Like Wolf and McNeely were probably like, thank God I don't have to do that. I'm here. I didn't just waste my time. So Phoenix, they trade for Mark Williams, and like 5 seconds later they draft Malawach from Duke. So they just instantaneously get two centers. And again, I as talent plays, like if Malawach falls to you at 10, you kind of have to take him. People are very high on him. The film on him is like outrageous how big he is and how much stuff he can potentially do defensively. And you want to say like, well, Mark Williams can be like the current guy and Malawach can be the next guy, except Mark Williams has done next to nothing in the NBA himself because of all his injuries. And here's where Phoenix is left with after all that. I have their depth chart somewhere. Here we are. Starting lineup. I'm just projecting this out. Mm-hmm. Just for fun. I like to do this for fun sometimes. Pause and do this. Devin Booker. I still haven't written my poem, Devin Booker's Lament, which I'm going to try to publish in the New Yorker. I joked about that earlier this week. Devin Booker's Lament. I'm trying to figure out if it should be a haiku or a long form poem. I'm in contact with the New Yorker's poetry editors about how best to structure it. Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal, Mark Williams, eligible for an extension. I just made that up. Maybe. I mean, like that's something. And then off the bench, I have Grayson Allen, Bradley Beal, and just a bunch of big guys. Dunn, Malawach, Nick Richards is still here. Iguodala, I liked okay. I don't know where it's going or what it's leading to, but what do you see here, Mo? And what do you make of the Williams Malawach 1-2 acquisition punch within like 30 seconds of each other?
Yeah, I think when I look at this Phoenix team, I just look at them going like, I don't know what the plan is in the short term in terms of building out, but I also don't think they have a plan in the long term for what they're building out. Like, I'm not sure if they really understand the assignment of what they got to do in terms of putting a team around Devin Booker and trying to compete in a very difficult conference in the West. I think it's still going to be really tough for them across the board. I like Dylan Brooks. I think, he'll help there defensively for them and sort of be their guy on the perimeter with everything that they have. We know Booker probably going to hopefully have a bounce back year. I can't imagine he's going to be as bad as he was last year. I think, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing kind of plays out. And then look, they went from having really no centers, and that was the big thing, to saying like, okay, we're going to go get two centers. I know the pick that they gave up in 2029 is most likely going to be a late draft pick and a late first round pick, but it's just when you don't have any picks, any of your picks at all over the next few years, like I feel like it's hard to give up a pick in a situation where you're just looking at
I believe it's the least favorable of Utah, Cleveland, Minnesota. That's that year.
Zach, can we put a cap on like when you get a pick swap and then just
we can swap it 30 times. There's going to be a pick at some point that's swapped with every team. Team.
I'm not smart.
A promiscuous pick.
Most favorable, middle favorable, like mildly favorable. Like I don't like this is too much. Like I'm it's too much for me.
You know what I'm waiting for? I'm actually waiting for a new version of the Marshawn Brooks, Dylan Brooks mess up. Where there's an error in which like teams misunderstand which pick they've acquired or sent out in a trade, and the league has to step in and figure it out. And there's a whole bunch of attorneys being like, well, I don't know. This was swapped with 2028 and 2029 and 2032.
It just messes you up in that sense. But I understand like they had a need at centers. And listen, if Mark Williams can stay healthy, and, like I like the promise of Mark Williams. I like Malawach. I think he's got some development to do in terms of growing into a full-time center in the NBA. I like what they got in him at 10, and you had to pick him at 10. I was a little bit surprised he got past Toronto. But I think this is the move there. I just don't know. When I look at the team, like my expectations for them are very low for next season because I just don't see what they're going to be.
Also, still don't have a point guard on the roster right now, and are over the second apron currently. Seems like a problem. Look, I don't. What do you think of what was your Malawach evaluation? Like, obviously he's gigantic. He should be a rim protector. He's incredibly athletic, catching lobs from all the great Duke guys who went all over the top of the draft. Like, what do we think he can become, Tate?
I will say this about Malawach. The hands are great. And there was a Coach K story that Billis told that I had heard during the season about like how their first practice that K went to, like Malawach's hands. He was like, I'm worried about his hands. And they were like, what do you mean? He's got great hands. He can catch the ball wherever. And they were like, no, from the dunking, like how much he was hitting the rim from blocking shots and dunking the basketball. They were like, we're worried he's going to hurt his hand. So I feel like as far as a lob threat, Malawach checks all those boxes. The usage offensively was so low this year. Like when they did use him, he was incredible. The fact that he was able to catch so many different lobs from Flagg, they had that little two-man game going where Flagg's like at the elbow and basically running high-low with Malawach. I thought that was really great in the pick and roll, those two guys being able to play off each other. I think the real thing with Malawach would be the motor. I would just want to make sure that he is actually as like locked in and, you know, full throttle as you would need him to be your primary number one go-to guy as your center. I'm a little bit worried there's a little bit too much finesse there. I'm a little bit worried there's a little bit too much lackadaisical play at times. The engagement needs to be there. And I feel like if he has a point guard, which you mentioned Phoenix does not have a point guard, so that does not help. But when you do have a point guard who can get your big, easy buckets, easy touches, get the basketball in their hand, I feel like the engagement in the game will get Malawach involved. And I think he has a high upside if that's the case. But if you just let him kind of be out of the way and stay out of the way, I feel like he could go really sideways really quickly. So if I'm Phoenix, I'm making sure that you keep him engaged in the game. And I feel like then you get the full version of, you know, common Malawach.
You know, it's interesting. We talked about the Spurs drafting for talent over fit by adding another kind of big guard.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about the Sixers drafting for talent over fit, if you want to frame it that way, by adding another guard/wing. Center is the one position where I think there is a bigger downside to doing that. Because they just can't play together the way you can throw guards and wings on the floor together. And we saw with Philly when they loaded up on Noel and Okafor and Embiid and on, and they just did not have minutes for these guys. And they had to sell Noel a little bit low in the end. It didn't turn out to be that low because he's not in the NBA currently. But and so like I just don't see a Mark Williams Malawach 4-5 combination happening, which is, you know, you can spin it this way. That's fine. Malawach is project too strong of a word, Tate?
I think project's too strong of a word.
Yeah.
I think he can actually play. Like if you had to play him 10 to 15 spot minutes, like if we're in the playoffs, like I think he could actually do that and help you out. Right.
So neither of them, it's okay to have both because you can look at them based on their experience levels and how far they have to grow in certain parts of the game. It's like, this is great. We can split 24 minutes each or 20 minutes, and then we figure out the other 8 minutes. Neither of them has to play a ton. Williams is an injury risk, and so we need an insurance policy long term. And then you think, well, if I need that insurance policy and he is injury risk, why am I trading all this stuff for him? But I'm a Mark Williams. I like Mark Williams. Defensively is where he's really just got to dial in because he's just not good enough with his feet in the pick and roll. He's not good enough instinctually at the rim, despite just the magnitude of his athleticism around the basket. He should be a much better rim protector. He does the thing where he jumps at shots way too late that he has no chance to get, and there's rebounds behind him. But he's very toolsy on both sides of the floor. I have a ton of faith in his offense. He's a monstrous offensive rebounder. He's a monstrous lob. He might be like a top 3 offensive rebounder in the NBA already when he plays. You talk to people in Charlotte and they were not blowing smoke. Like they didn't tell me this stuff for publication or whatever. Like they really think that he'll be able to shoot threes at some point in his career. Now he's got to shoot twos, like beyond the length of his arm first. But I think there's a real offensive talent there. It's just with these centers, it's not like he's ever going to be Şengün, like a point center, a post-up center. He's only going to be able to show off so much of that talent, which means you really have to maximize what you are defensively as a rim protector and pick and roll barricade to make it. And I think the price they paid, to me, I think Mark Williams is worth that bet. Even with Malawach coming up behind him, I don't mind that. I just look at this team and look at all the picks that they're out and all the swaps that they're out, and they're stuck with Beal. And I'm like, good luck pivoting into something that makes actual sense in the next 2 or 3 years. I don't know if they can do it.
Zach, is there any chance they can get Beal to waive this no trade clause? I know it was crazy last year, but is there like what would even be the market for Bradley Beal? Like, I don't even know if there's anybody that's going to be chomping at the bit to go trade for him. We obviously saw at the deadline there was nobody that was willing to try to make a move, and the no trade clauses adds a wrinkle. But is there any way you think in just situation where Beal just looks around going like, I don't even want to be here, and get me out of here?
It actually makes me sad. This dude averaged 30 points a game in the NBA.
He can play.
He was an all NBA player. He was an all NBA player on my ballot at least once, if not twice. And now, because of nothing he did wrong, really, although he has not played enough due to health reasons. And I mean, you look at his numbers last year, you'd be shocked at how well he shot the ball. It's like people look at him as just this sunk cost. Like off the bench, 17 points on like 50, 40, whatever shooting. Like he shot it really well last year. And because of the no trade clause, which he asked for and got, he's just unmovable. My brain hasn't gotten there, Mo. The last team I want to interrogate a little bit is, I was a little flip earlier being like, can we pump the brakes on the Mavs as like a title contender? And I'm not backing off that at all, particularly since I don't know when Kyrie is going to come back, or, the history of these kind of injuries is it's really 26, 27 when we can expect Kyrie to be Kyrie again. And Kyrie has been outstanding for the Mavericks when healthy. But I just want to interrogate that a little bit with you guys. And you guys can test if was I being too flip dismissing them in the same breath as saying the West below Oklahoma City and Houston is like a little bit murky. Like there's a room for like a surprise 4 seed that makes a run, right? Okay, so let's just plot out their starting 5. This was the starting 5 that was like plastered across the airwaves last night. Kyrie, injured. So, I do with that what you will. Clay, aging, somewhat disappointing year 1 in Dallas. Cooper Flagg, awesome. Cannot freaking wait for Cooper Flagg.
Right.
No other things to say. He's going to be extraordinary. Anthony Davis, insisting on playing the 4. Congratulations. You've found a team that is willing to accommodate you. And Derek Lively. Now, you got to pencil in somebody to start for Kyrie. Let's say free agent point guard X, whether it's Spencer Dinwiddie or D'Angelo Russell. And already we are not contending for a championship now, just based on that alone. Right. Any contention dreams this coming season are based on Kyrie coming back and being Kyrie. But the bench is actually like they've got some, like we didn't mention PJ Washington, who I think could start in some circumstances. Najee Marshall was awesome for them last year in an expanded role. Gafford, they just extended on a 3-year, $54 million deal, which is a great value for Daniel Gafford. By the way, Kyrie, I should mention, just extended on a great value deal on his own right. Max Christie, that's the appropriate role for him at this point, like a solid 2-way wing off the bench. Backup point guard, I don't know. I like the Brandon Williams kid. They've got Jaden Hardy hanging around, and beyond that is Omax Prosper and some other play AD at the 5. Like that's not Mo. What is that team? Like, well, let's imagine a world where Kyrie comes back ahead of schedule. Like, let's say, what did I say? He got injured in January or something? Or no, in March? In March. Let's say he comes back in January. And after a month of finding his footing, looks like Kyrie. What is that team?
That's a really good basketball team, Zach. That's a team that you look at going like, I'm not going contender. I'm not going with the whole concept of Nico Harrison's vision of this is going to be a championship contender. I'm
glad you said that. I couldn't believe this was a real quote. It added to the collection of I couldn't believe this was a real quote by a Dallas Mavericks executive in the wake of the Luka Doncic trade. And there are many. It's Tim McMahon tweets, Nico Harrison on the Mavs winning the lottery and the right to draft Cooper Flagg despite 1.8% odds. Fortune favors the bold. So exciting things fell our way. So exciting! It's so exciting. That's Fortune favors the bold. What you're saying? The lottery guards rewarded us for being bold. Oh my! Whew.
And okay, bold is an interesting word to use, by the way.
Bold, I guess, does work in one way. Yeah,
in a certain context of all of that stuff. But I think you can see kind of the seeds. First off, their front court really solid defensively. I think with what you have AD and Lively starting and then Gafford coming off, you have a good amount of rim protection with everything that you got there. You have, the backcourt is what scares me because, like you said, Clay's aging, and even if Kyrie comes back healthy, the backcourt, the shooting guard position is where I'm going to really see a lot of weakness and all that stuff. And as great as Cooper Flagg is, and I'm excited to watch Cooper Flagg, he's still a rookie. Like, I'm not sure if he's coming in right away and going to just automatically lift all the things, all the problems that are going on with the Mavs throughout the course of the season, with their questions defensively, with their shooting and things like that. He's going to help with everything, but I don't know if he lifts you up to that level where we're going to talk about them as like, this is a team that's going to be a threat to the Thunder, a threat to Houston. Watch out now, here they come. But they're a team that if they can stay afloat till Kyrie comes and gets his footing, as you said, and it works out where it's not such a long runway for Kyrie to get going, they're interesting, because Najee Marshall showed a ton in that stretch towards the end of the season. I love PJ Washington. I think he does a great job. It fits in perfectly for them with everything that they do. Like, I like the way they're set up. It's just, I'm a little bit worried about the backcourt. And again, if it's D'Angelo Russell as your starting point guard, all right, that's more pressure on your front court at the rim having to defend properly because he's going to give up a lot of drives to the basket. It's Clay's not the guy he used to be. He's going to give up drives to the basket. Like, this is going to be one of those things where it puts pressure on your bigs to constantly erase mistakes over and over again and makes it difficult a little bit in the sense of having cohesion defensively. And then the other thing, we have to just kind of bring it up. Like, AD, like, how dependent can you be in terms of health with him in that situation? It's something that you definitely have to be concerned. It's not fair to say, to project, you're going to get X amount of games from him and things like that. He might have a fully healthy year, and then we'll talk about him differently. But I think it's one of those things you got to be concerned about with them. But if they can stay healthy, they'd be interesting. And they'd be a team that we would say, if they can stay afloat, they're an interesting squad. And once Kyrie comes back, because then you're opening your eyes. Because if Kyrie comes back and can be Kyrie Irving again, of what we've seen, like him and AD, I think, paired really well together. And then you have an opportunity for Cooper to attack the second side, which is going to be a little bit easier for the Rook to be able to kind of attack a team rotating to him versus a standstill situation where, hey, go make something happen. I think we're looking at something where it's like, all right, there's something here. I just think we're still far away from that.
How do you think he fits there, Tate?
Yeah, I think it's a great fit in general. I do like the Scalabrini. I know that Scal kind of did a little bit too far. He's like, I think Cooper Flagg will be a LeBron James figure, when it's all said and done. In like 3 years, you all will be saying, thank you, Scal, for telling us. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to go that far, but I do think that Cooper Flagg has those tools to be a guy who is the guy. You know what I mean? Like, talk about a guy that wants to be the franchise guy. He has that mindset. I had a coach tell me, an assistant coach, he was like, I kind of compare Flagg to like Anthony Davis with an alpha mentality. You know what I mean? Like, that is what he is. He wants to be the guy. I think that's very encouraging if you're the Dallas Mavericks. The thing that concerns me the most with the Mavericks is Sean Sweeney going to the Spurs. The whole calling card of this team and Nico's whole MO is defense wins championships. Well, the guy who runs the defense just left your team to go to the Spurs, and he was the defensive coordinator. Kid had basically turned all things over to Sean. So now Sean is running the defense. Now he leaves. What does the Dallas defense look like without Sweeney? I'm fascinated to see that. Also, you got Kid talking to Flagg about creating, giving him the ball, let him dictate the offense. I find that fascinating. Like, how much is Kid going to give him the keys next year as almost like a trial period during this weird year where everybody's hurt, just to get him the reps in for the next year? I think that would be the fascinating storyline with this team. But Cooper Flagg is going to be good. I really, yeah. I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. Look, and I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Whatever happens in the next 2 years, Cooper Flagg is the life raft that you needed after trading your previous life raft to the Lakers and 100%. Leaving yourself exposed draft pick wise. That's what really matters here. We'll see what they are in the short term. I think there's a very good team in here somewhere. I'm skeptical about, championship contention, real threat to the Thunder. And offensively, you mentioned Flagg creating, and I'm just excited for everything that he can do. And if you want, if he is LeBron, if he is that, if Scal's right, LeBron was in the finals in like 4 or 5 years into his career with a roster, right? So right. Just if that's what he is, then the conversation is different. There are certain guys whose names I just don't think you should throw out in draft comps very often, and that's one. And just offensively, like AD at the 4 people talk about chemistry and the time it takes. And Luka and Kyrie have talked about how they needed that first year together, or their first part of the year and the first camp together to really find their footing after they acquired Kyrie midseason. I think the same applies here. Like AD at the 4, again, not full time, but 70% of the time, 60% of the time with a rim running center and now a rookie and a point guard coming off an ACL tear. That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. And we already saw AD on offense, like taking a lot more mid-range jumpers. Spacing the floor isn't the right term because he doesn't space the floor, and trying to pick his spots. And that's a lot of work to do with the revamped coaching staff. All right. We covered a lot, and Desmond Bane is coming on now. Mo Dakhil, thank you, sir. Tate Frazier, One Shining Podcast. It's great to see you and be your teammate. We covered everything, I think, guys. Thanks for coming on early in the morning your time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Anytime you need us.
All right. Let's welcome on a special guest, the newest member. I guess you're not the newest member of the Orlando Magic anymore. They have a newer member than you and Jace Richardson. Desmond Bane, what's up, sir?
Appreciate you having me, man. What's up?
How you doing?
Good, man. Real good. How you doing?
I'm good. You look like you're doing good. You gonna go for a swim later back there?
Yeah, it's hard to beat out here for sure. Hard to beat it.
I heard you were at Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Is that true?
Very true. Very true. Yeah, it was crazy environment.
And I know you have a good relationship with Tyrese. What was it? Where were you sitting? What was it like seeing that happen? Did you get to talk to him after the game at all? I mean, it's an all-time. I'm still not over it, and I'm just a guy who was a neutral observer of the game.
Yeah, well, I was actually texting with him this morning. Just more so about life than anything. And yeah, it was. I mean, it was hard to tell, like, because when it's live, you know, it's hard to pick up on the small nuances and things like that that's going on. But, you know, once you saw him, you know, not getting up off the floor and the way the team and trainers and things like that were reacting, you could tell it was something serious. And I was just hoping, you know, for the best for him. But, you know, seems like he's in decent spirits, and you know, I'm sure he's gonna attack this rehab and get back and be even better.
What was it like to be in the building for Game 7 of the NBA Finals? First Game 7 in 9 years for the finals.
Yeah, it was crazy. One of my friends that I took with me, he was, you know, like in the middle of the game, like basically saying thank you for taking us, and it's crazy how crazy we are to be here. And in that moment, like, it was hard for me to accept what he was talking about, just because I want to be there. I want to be the one that, you know, my family and friends are coming to check out. But it was definitely a great experience, and something I hope to be a part of.
I listened to you with my friend Tommy Alter on Young Man in the Three last week. You were not totally shocked to be traded. It sounds like the Grizzlies kind of prepped you a little bit that a door was going to be open. And what I had heard was in exit interviews with Zach Kleiman, the GM, he kind of told you and maybe some others for the first time, like, I can't sit here and say to your face, like, there's a 100% chance you're going to be on the team next year. Is that about when it happened?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was different exit interviews, you know, all the way around. You know, I mean, we had just got swept, you know, so that was a sour note to go out on. But then, you know, the vibe around the building is coached. Is Tomas going to be the coach? Like, you go into the exit interviews, and like you said, Zach was upfront and honest with a few of us and told us, like, hey, look, there's a possibility. I can't guarantee anything, and you know, next thing you know, here I
am. And now you're a member of the Orlando Magic. I've already talked about the trade. I think the fit is awesome. I love them just saying, you know what, this is our guy. We're going to throw 4 picks out and we're going to get this guy. This is our guy. How much time? I think you're in Florida right now, right?
I'm back in Texas.
You're back in Texas now?
Yeah, it's at the lake house. I'll be going down to Orlando here in about 10 days. Go start finding a place to live and getting acclimated with the guys and stuff.
Yeah. Have you spent any time in person with Franz and Paolo yet?
I haven't. I think Franz is doing like some international stuff this summer. And P, I think he's out in Seattle doing his thing. We've texted both of us multiple times, but we'll have plenty of time to connect for sure.
And I assume you are excited about the fit. I heard you joking with Tommy, like, yeah, we're like the 3-point stats, we're going to change those real fast, but like you do fit right in. And I think, you know, for people who may not have watched the Grizz that closely over the last couple of years, when Ja's been out, you've taken a much bigger playmaking load and I think gotten comfortable in that kind of lead guard role. And it's something that, like, if Franz is on the bench or Paolo's on the bench, like, you can lift up. It's not like you're just running around shooting threes. You can bring a lot to this team. Are you pumped about the fit and what you guys can do in the East?
I don't think there could have been a much better fit. I mean, you put me next to a guard like Jalen Suggs that plays both sides of the ball, dynamic, plays with speed in the open court, um, really shown promise shooting the ball too over the past year or so. Franz, obviously, like a do-it-all three, better defender than a lot of people, know, and you saw what he was doing in the playoffs against Boston and what he's capable of, and obviously Paolo is going to be a first team All NBA type guy, for probably multiple years in his career. And Big Dell, Wendell, I mean, just shooting five, strong, physical, switch 1 through 5. I think that it fits like a glove, and like you said, like my skill set is something that I think that can really help take some pressure off of Franz and Paulo, Suggs and all the guys. So I'm excited to get to work and go make something happen in the East.
I actually thought, given the injuries they had and the uphill battle they were facing, that they played Boston pretty tough in the first round of the playoffs.
For sure.
I don't know if you're obviously in your own first round series. I don't know how much of that you got to watch, or like how much of Orlando you just, like, as a league pass junkie you've watched over the years. But like, how much did you get to watch that series at all, or have you gone back and watched it since being on the team?
Yeah, I watched it as much as I could while it was going on, and I mean, defensively, they're a nightmare. I mean, they got size and mobility all over the floor, and you combine that with Paulo and Fran's ability to attack. Whether it's smaller guys, bigger guys, it really makes problems for a lot of teams. And like you said, I mean, they weren't healthy. So it's like they're still trying to gel, and I'll be new, so we're all going to try to gel and find our niche and our groove. They started out the season like 4-5-1. Paulo went for like 50 or whatever before he ended up hurting his oblique. So I think that the talent's there, the pieces are there. More importantly, the culture's there. Great people across the board. Like, it starts with Jeff and Coach Mose, but I mean, the players that they have in the building. Like, I don't see any reason why we can't be making a deep run.
Why not? You mentioned Jamal Mose. You have deep ties to the state of Texas, including college. You were the 30th pick in the draft in 2020. A lot of buzz that the Dallas Mavericks were thinking about taking you, and they went a different direction, which I'm sure you have not forgotten. Yeah. Jamal Mosley was on that staff in Dallas. Have you had this conversation yet with him?
I haven't, but now that you bring that up, that's something we're definitely going to have to talk about.
You remember? Do you remember all the teams that passed on you?
I do. I remember. I mean, that night like it was just yesterday. I mean, it was cool. It's always cool this time of year seeing everybody else's dreams become reality and stuff like that. But obviously, a big night for me and my family, for my career. And yeah, I won't forget. But I'm super happy to be in Orlando, and I think everything happens for a reason. So, Mose and I, we found each other at the right time.
No, I'm not saying he had any role in that decision, but I'm saying you got the inside look at, like, all right, what was going on in the draft room? How did you guys? I'm right in your backyard at TCU. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, I got a nice little talking point for sure with him, for sure.
One of my favorite things about watching you play, and again, you were the 30th pick, so it's not like you walk in and like, I'm the guy, the ball's going to be with me, like, but you play with such fearlessness. Like, now you will take threes that there's only 4 or 5 guys in the league who will take contested, pull up, like, hand in your face kind of threes, and you make enough of them. And I call you the Bane train in transition because, like, you're like Josh Hart. It's like 1-on-3, 1-on-2. I'm just going full speed, and you can get in front of me. And if you get in front of me, it's going to hurt you, and I'm going to finish. But, like, was it what steps did you have to take to get to a place where you're like, I'm just going to play with zero fear, zero worry that anyone's going to maybe question this shot? Like, I know my game, and I know I can play this way, and I don't care that I'm the 30th pick or that we have this star over here, this star. Was it hard to get to that place, or is that just naturally how you play?
I think that's how I came up. I mean, we played at this park called Clear Creek Park, in Richmond, and I remember being a young guy that nobody would pick up, and then, you get your chance, and you got to fight for everything. So like, I think it started there for sure. And then my work has carried me since then. I mean, going to TCU, like I didn't have any high major offers. TCU was the only one that I had, and I got that like 2 weeks before I graduated high school. So quick turnaround, like all the things that going through your head. Should I just win mid major? Like, am I good enough to play high major? But that fearlessness and that work is what carried me there, and it worked for me there. So why change?
You were late to get picked in these pickup games. You were like a
Oh,
bottom.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
come from a town of 30,000 people, so it's not like there's the best players, but it's just like, shoot, the old heads is on the court. Like, you got to pay your respects or whatnot, and earn their respect. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you get on the court, like, that the only time they're going to pick you up next time we run is if you go out there and do something. So, that's kind of how all that went down.
We're gonna get back to the Magic in a second, but I would be remiss as an interviewer if I did not ask you. You had an interesting few years in Memphis as a
Mhm.
team,
Mhm.
in some completely unusual, like unique to you guys circumstances. I just wonder what it's like from your perspective. What is it like when that video footage of Ja in the club in Denver comes out, and the other stuff, the other video footage comes out, and you realize something's happening here? What's up? We got someone in the background.
Yeah.
Something's happening here, and this guy might not be on our team for a while because there's going to be a penalty here, and also like a human element of what's actually going on in this guy's life. Do you reach out to him? Do you talk to him, and just like take me through the day when that, like, the TMZ footage comes out and all of this, and you're like, oh my god, our life as a team is about to change.
Nah, I mean, Ja is a great dude, first and foremost. Whether we're at the house kicking it or we're out in the city doing something, like, he's always the first one to invite everybody somewhere, the last one out of there, making sure everybody gets back where they need to go. So he's a great teammate and great person, and everybody makes mistakes. Like, I've made plenty of mistakes, and I just so happen not to be, somebody who others want to be the face of the league. You know what I'm saying? And I think he's grown past it. And all my time that I had in Memphis was great, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I think it was great experiences for me, both on and off the court. And I'm excited for this next chapter in Orlando.
It's interesting, despite the ups and downs and despite the fact that he was suspended for a while, like, you guys all speak very, very highly of Ja as a teammate and
For
a
sure.
person, like that you never wavered on that.
For sure. I mean, it's easy to look from the outside, and come up with your own opinions or whatever it may be. But when you get to know somebody, you know their heart. It's no question in anything.
How much of a struggle with the change in the offensive system last year was there for you guys? Like, going away from the pick and roll and all the movement that caught everybody by surprise
Yeah.
at first. Like, whoa, there's nothing like this in the NBA. What's happening? How hard was that?
I mean, I remember training camp vividly. Like, I felt like one of my superpowers was just like randomness, like being able to run and kind of get away from defenders, create separation. And Noah LaRoche, who was my player development coach, was like, "Hey, we need you to cut here. We need you to fill behind here. Like, the only way this is going to work is if everybody's on the same page doing the same thing." And we started out the season kind of sort of bought into it, sort of not bought into it. I had got hurt about 4 or 5 games in, and then probably by about game 10, we started catching our stride. I was still out at the time, but I'm watching, and I'm like, man, like, this is really working. So whenever I came back, like, I was like, man, like, this is working. I'm fully bought into it. And like the first 8 games or so, like, I was struggling, like, wasn't able really to find my pockets or whatnot, but we're winning by 40 points, 50 points. So I'm like, man, well, this is like, I'm fine. Like, as long as this is what y'all expect of me, like, I'm fine with it. And then I started catching my stride, finding my pockets, and had a maneuver in that offense. And me and Noah grew a lot. It started out a little rocky, but we grew a lot. I just talked to him the other day. So I think that it was a great experience for me. Like it showed me that regardless if I'm in Memphis, regardless if I'm in Orlando, regardless if I'm somewhere else, under certain systems, like there are different ways to skin a cat and different ways for me to thrive. So it gave me a lot of confidence as a player that you can drop me anywhere and I'll find a way.
Is there I know it's early, you haven't gotten to get to know the system and teammates and all that stuff quite yet in Orlando, but even separate from Orlando or maybe specific to it, is there any aspect of your game, like a small aspect on either end of the floor, offense, defense, where you are like, I'm dialed in on getting better at that little thing, particularly in this new context in Orlando?
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on it. I mean, Jalen obviously is going to be on the ball a lot, Paulo and Franz, but really being able to organize offense and be like an initiator for offense. I'm not sure, like I said, exactly what my role is going to be. Like I feel like I can bring the movement, shooting, the spacing, secondary playmaking, and things like that. But being able to initiate offense against pressure. You see the Indianas, you see the teams that were still playing at the end, like they apply a lot of pressure, full court for the whole course of the game. So it's like not only working on that skill, but your conditioning to be able to tolerate that for a full 48 minutes. For 20 games long of a playoff run is what's on my mind.
You bring up Indiana, and I'll let you go in a couple minutes, but it just jogged my memory. Like everyone around the league, I think I've talked to GMs and coaches and players, is watch this playoff run from Indiana, which I think even if you were a Pacers optimist, it was surprising how far they got and that they were one win from the NBA championship.
Sure.
And thinking like, what can we take from that? Like, what should the lessons of that be? So when you watch the Pacers play, like what did you take from it?
Togetherness. They compete like crazy on both ends of the floor. Like they're gonna make you work on offense. They're gonna make you work on defense. And I mean, I think there's not every team has a Tyrese Halliburton. A superstar that's willing to. He gets criticized for it, but shoot 6 shots some games, shoot 15 shots other games. Like that trickles down throughout the entire team. Like, I mean, you have different guys on different nights, whether it's Siakam, Obi Toppin, Miles Turner, Nimhard, Neesmith. Like, that stuff's hard to replicate. And, like, the only way that you have that is if you have an unselfish leader. And, I think that they don't get enough credit for the type of people that they brought into the facility, like, that are okay with sometimes taking a back seat and being like, I'm happy for my other man's success, and they obviously have that competitive edge to them. So I think it's easy, every year after the finals to be like, man, like I want to be like Indiana, I want to be like OKC, I want to be like Boston or Denver, and it's like it's hard to do that. Like I think that you can take small bits and pieces, from what you see, but you can't lose sight of your own identity and who you are and what you've built. So I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword.
So you just said the I word, and we'll end with this: identity.
Hmm.
And I don't remember who it was, but someone was saying after the Magic traded for you, like, why can't Orlando be the next Pacers, the next team that makes a big leap that we didn't see necessarily coming this far? And initially I was like, well, they don't really play anything like the Pacers. They don't have a Halliburton. They're a different kind of team. But what the Magic do have is an identity. And the identity is defense, physicality, and toughness. And like, we are going to be nasty to play against, and you are going to feel it. And if you have to play us in a 7-game series, you are really going to feel it. Is that, I mean, you only played them twice a year in the opposite conference, but is that, like, can you lean even further into that? Because it hurts to play against the Magic, man. It really hurts.
100. I mean, 1,000%. And I mean, I think that's what our front office has done a good job of doing. Like same way that we're talking about Tyrese Halliburton as a leader and like go get unselfish guys, selfless guys. Like the Magic are rounding out the roster with guys that are hard nosed, tough, like to work. So I think it's like the front office understands what they want. They have the players that fit the mold, and a coach who can be the driving piece to all of it. And that's why their identity is so strong. And I'm super excited to be a part of a team like that. You know, when I was in Memphis, like we'd have talks with Zebo and other people from the grit and grind era, and you know, I'd love to create something like that in Orlando for sure, being known for our rugged, hard-nosed, you know, basketball.
I like that. The Magic is the natural heirs to the grit and grind Grizzlies, and you as a connective piece between the two. Desmond Bane, if people haven't watched the Grizzlies too much, they have no idea how good you are. They're going to find out real soon because the Orlando Magic are going to win a lot of games next year. Enjoy what's left of your offseason, and thanks for making a little time, sir.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, that's it for today's Zach Lowe Show. Thank you to Tate Frazier. Thank you to Mo Dakhil for educating us all about the draft. Thank you to Desmond Bane for popping on. Thanks to Jesse, John, and Isaiah on production. We will see you next week on Monday, barring something insane happening between now and then, which is the NBA. You never know. But if not, we'll see you Monday morning on the Zach Lowe Show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for consuming however you do it. We'll see you next week. Must be 21 and over and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 and over and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.